It was a Tuesday evening, which should have been my first warning. Nothing good ever happens on a Tuesday. I was lying on our king-sized bed in our apartment in Bondi Junction, listening to the shower running for the second time that day. This was peculiar. Kylie, my wife, was never the type to care much about being clinically clean. She was more of a shower every other day unless I have a Pilates class kind of woman. So, 2 showers in one single day was worth noting. The water was still running when I noticed her handbag on the armchair near our dresser. It looked like it had burst open. The zipper was undone, and half of the contents had spilled across the timber floor. There was lip gloss, shopping receipts, hair ties, and what looked like half of the travel section of Sydney Morning Herald spread across the wood. I am not the type of man to dig through my wife's purse. That is a marriage sin right up there, with leaving the toilet seat up or forgetting a wedding anniversary. But the mess bothered me. So, I thought I would be the decent husband and clean it up before she came out and started stress cleaning at midnight, like she sometimes did when her work got difficult. So there I was, playing the good bloke, picking up tampons and mints, wondering why women need 17 lipsticks that all look exactly the same. That was when my hand brushed against something that did not fit in with the usual rubbish in a handbag. It was small, cool to the touch, and made of smooth metal. It felt expensive and sharp in design. I pulled the object out and held it up to the bedside lamp. It was a silver tube, about 4 inches long, with a sleek, simple look. It looked like something a technology company would make if they sold personal lubricants. The body of the tube was covered in Japanese writing, black text against the silver background. It looked pricey, the kind of thing you do not just grab at Chemist Warehouse while buying a carton of milk. My first thought was medical. Maybe she had some health issues she did not want to talk about. Women's health can be complicated, and Kylie hated talking about things that made her feel uneasy. But then I thought, if it was medical, why was the packaging in Japanese? And why had she not told me? Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed my mobile telephone, opened the camera application, and scanned the text. The translation software came to the rescue while I sat there at 11:30 at night, questioning my entire marriage. The screen lit up with the translation, and I swear I felt my blood turn cold. Premium men's personal lubricant, long-lasting formula, men's lubricant, not women's, not for couples, men's. And it was not new. The tube was about half empty with that used look from regular handling. I turned it over in my hands, my brain trying to catch up while my gut screamed what I did not want to hear. My wife had never bought anything like this for us. We barely used lubricant at all, and when we did, it was the cheap kind from the local pharmacy in a plain plastic bottle. This silver tube looked like it cost more than our weekly grocery run, and it certainly was not meant for me. I kept staring at the tube. Then my eyes slid to her tablet computer sitting on the desk. The screen was still on, glowing faintly. She had left it open after working on some presentation slides earlier. The home screen showed all her neat little application folders with cute names like Fun Stuff, Work Tools, and Groceries. Wait, groceries? I had never once seen Kylie use a grocery application. This was the same woman who made me drive to 3 different shops just to get the right brand of pasta sauce because she refused to check the inventory online. And now she had a groceries folder on her tablet computer? That was like finding out your vegan friend had a freezer full of beef burgers. My hands shook slightly as I tapped the folder. Inside was only one application I did not recognize. It was some kind of chat platform with a plain, boring icon designed to look like a calculator. My thumb hovered over it for what felt like forever, or maybe just half a minute. This was it. Either I was going crazy, or my whole life was about to come apart. I opened the application, the chat loaded, and right at the top was a thread with someone named Jack. The profile picture was just a shadow of a torso, a muscular chest and abs, but the words, oh God, the words, Jack, I cannot wait to see you Thursday. Bring that stuff. I like the silver one. Makes it so much better. Jack, going to do things to you your husband never could. I scrolled up. My vision blurred as weeks of messages filled the screen, descriptions of hotel rooms, photos I wished I had not seen, mentions of that same silver tube I was holding in my sweaty hand. The dates hit me like a hammer. Every late night at the office, every girls' night out, every I am too tired tonight, honey. All of them were lies. The shower was still running. I could hear Kylie humming a pop song. Carefree, like she had not just set fire to our marriage with a half-empty tube of Japanese lubricant and a secret chat application hidden in a fake grocery folder. Then I saw the most recent message sent just before she entered the shower. Kylie, he is clueless. I will give him the special herbal tea again. It knocks him out cold. Meet you upstairs in 20 minutes. Upstairs. I froze. Jack was not just some random stranger. He lived in our building, apartment 404, directly above us. I looked at the tube, then the messages, then back at the tube. My hands stopped shaking. They moved steadily now, almost calm. I walked to the kitchen, opened the utility drawer, and pulled out the tube of heavy-duty industrial adhesive I had bought last month for a repair on the balcony tiles. If Kylie wanted to play games with fancy foreign lubricant, then fine. I would give her an experience she would never forget. The shower finally stopped. I had just finished my little arts and crafts project in the kitchen when I heard the bathroom door open. My hands were steady now. I had taken the tube of heavy-duty industrial adhesive, the sort of glue used to bond timber decking and concrete, and carefully injected a generous amount into the silver tube of Japanese personal lubricant. The consistency was terrifyingly similar. I had given the tube a gentle shake to mix the contents, wiped the nozzle clean, and placed it back in her handbag exactly how I had found it. The sound of bare feet padding across our polished floorboards made my heart race, but not in the romantic way it used to. It was more like the sensation of waiting for a thunderstorm to break. Kylie walked out of the bathroom, looking like she was in a shampoo advertisement, wrapped in that soft white towel I had bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice dripping with that artificial sweetness people use when they are hiding a catastrophic secret. "You look exhausted." She walked past me to the kitchen, the very scene of my tampering only moments ago, and returned with a tall glass of warm milk. She held it out like a peace offering. "Here, drink this," she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "It will help you sleep. Do you not have that early meeting with the planning council tomorrow morning?" And there it was, the early meeting. The one I had only mentioned in passing at dinner. The one she had tucked away in her mind as the perfect opportunity for another secret night out. Because nothing says loyal wife like sedating your husband so you can sneak off to the apartment upstairs. I took the glass, watching her face in the low light. She looked so caring, so worried about me getting my rest. "Thanks, honey," I said, taking a small sip. It tasted normal, but I knew better. "You are the best." I pretended to drink half of the milk, but the moment she turned around to hang up her towel, I poured the rest into the soil of the large potted fig tree in the corner of our bedroom. That tree was going to have a very restful night. "I love you," I said as I set the empty glass on the bedside table. The words burned in my mouth like acid, but her face lit up. "I love you too, Liam," she replied. That was the worst part. Not just that she was cheating, but that she could look me in the eye with so much warmth while planning to run off to a hotel room. Or in this case, apartment 404, with a man named Jack. The next hour was the longest 60 minutes of my life. I lay there listening to her breathing, waiting for it to settle into that deep, even rhythm that meant she thought I was unconscious. Every few minutes, I would let out a little snore or shift positions, really selling the performance of the heavily sedated husband. She was cautious. I will give her that. She waited a full hour before making her move, probably making sure whatever medication she had slipped me had enough time to take effect. I felt the mattress shift as she carefully climbed out of bed, moving with the stealth of someone who had performed this dance many times before. At exactly 12:45 in the morning, I heard the soft click of our front door opening, and then the faint sound of the lift bell in the hallway outside our apartment. I counted to 20. Then I slipped out of bed, grabbed my dressing gown, and crept toward the door. The hallway was empty. The indicator light above the lift showed that it had stopped on the 4th floor, directly above us. I did not follow her immediately. I did not need to see them together. I knew exactly what was about to happen. Instead, I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of cold water from the refrigerator. I leaned against the stone benchtop and looked at the clock on the microwave oven. 1:15 a.m. It took exactly 30 minutes. At first, it was quiet. The building was solid, built with double brick walls to block out the noise of the city. But sound travels through ventilation shafts and plumbing pipes. Suddenly, I heard it. A thud on the floor above. Then a voice. Jack's voice. Sharp and confused. "What the hell?" Then came Kylie's voice, rising in pitch. "Wait, something is wrong. Jack, stop. It hurts." I took a sip of water. The show was beginning. "It is stuck," Jack yelled. "What did you bring? What is this?" "It is the same silver tube, the Japanese brand you like." Kylie was screaming now, panic creeping into every syllable. "Oh my God, we are stuck. We are actually stuck." I could hear the frantic shuffling of furniture. They were trying to separate themselves. I imagined the scene, the panic, the confusion, the dawning realization that their night of passion had turned into a medical emergency. They would be trying everything, water, soap, maybe even cooking oil, but I knew that industrial adhesive. It was waterproof, it was heat resistant, and it set in less than 5 minutes. "Call an ambulance," Kylie shrieked. "Jack, call the ambulance. I cannot move." "I cannot call them like this," Jack shouted back. "Think about my reputation." "I do not care about your reputation. Call them." I decided that was my cue to intervene. I picked up my mobile telephone and dialed 000-000. "Emergency. Police, fire, or ambulance?" The operator asked. "Ambulance and police, please," I said, my voice trembling with practiced concern. "I am calling from the Bondi Junction apartments. I can hear terrible screaming coming from the apartment directly above me. Unit 404. It sounds like someone is being tortured. I think it might be a domestic violence situation. Please hurry." I hung up the telephone and checked my appearance in the hallway mirror. I messed up my hair to look like I had just woken up. Phase 1 was complete. Now it was time for the audience to arrive. The street outside our building was illuminated by a chaotic display of flashing blue and red lights. The New South Wales Ambulance Service and the New South Wales Police Force arrived within 10 minutes of my telephone call. I stood by the lift in the hallway, wearing my dressing gown and slippers, looking like the picture of a worried neighbor. I could hear heavy boots running up the emergency stairs. The door to apartment 404 was not designed to withstand a battering ram, and moments later, a loud crash echoed down the stairwell. Then came the shouting. "Police! Is anyone injured?" "In here! We are in the bedroom. Do not look. Just help us." That was Jack, his voice cracking with a mixture of pain and humiliation. Doors along the hallway began to open. Mrs. Higgins from apartment 3B poked her head out, her hair in curlers, holding her mobile telephone like a weapon ready to record. "What is going on, Liam?" she asked, her eyes wide with excitement. "Is it a drug raid?" I always knew that man upstairs was suspicious. "I do not know, Mrs. Higgins," I said, rubbing my forehead. "I heard terrible screaming. I am just hoping everyone is safe." It took the paramedics nearly 20 minutes to figure out how to transport them. The lift doors finally slid open, and 2 exhausted-looking officers wheeled a stretcher out. The scene was grotesque yet hilarious. Underneath a white hospital sheet, 2 shapes were moving in unison. Jack was lying flat on his back, and Kylie was, well, let us just say she was positioned in a way that defied dignity. They were covered, but the geometry of the situation was unmistakable. "Get that camera out of my face," Jack shouted from under the sheet. "This is a violation of my privacy." Mrs. Higgins did not lower her mobile telephone. In fact, she zoomed in. "Crikey," she muttered. "That looks uncomfortable." I stepped forward, blocking the path of the stretcher just for a moment. I needed to see her. I needed her to see me. "Excuse me," I said to the paramedic. "Who is under there?" "My wife. My wife is not in our apartment." The paramedic, a tall woman who looked like she had seen everything in her career, lifted the corner of the sheet. Kylie stared back at me. Her face was flushed red, covered in sweat and tears. Her eyes widened in horror as she saw me standing there, looking concerned and innocent. "Liam?" she croaked. "Kylie?" I gasped, putting a hand to my chest. "What happened? I thought you were sleeping. Why are you on a stretcher with... Is that Jack from upstairs?" "Sir, we need to move," the paramedic said firmly. "We have a complicated situation here requiring immediate surgical intervention." As they wheeled them towards the ambulance, I did not follow immediately. I watched Mrs. Higgins upload her video to the internet. I knew that by sunrise, the hashtag Chugger Bondi Lovers would be trending across the entire country. I arrived at St. Vincent's Hospital the next morning at 10 a.m. I walked into the private recovery room carrying a bouquet of cheap flowers. The atmosphere in the room was heavy enough to crush a man. Kylie was lying in the bed by the window. Jack was in the bed opposite her. They had been successfully separated, but the bandages wrapped around their midsections told a painful story. Kylie looked like she had been through a war. Her hair was a disaster, her makeup was gone, and she refused to make eye contact with me. "Morning, honey," I said, placing the flowers on the rolling table. "How was your night? You left in quite a hurry." She froze. "Liam, I can explain." "I am listening," I said, pulling up a plastic chair and sitting down comfortably. I was sleepwalking," she stammered. "You know how I get when I am stressed. I must have wandered upstairs. The door was open. I tripped and fell, and Jack tried to catch me. You fell? I asked, my face completely neutral. Yes, it was a freak accident. And you fell onto him while naked? I asked. And you accidentally fell onto a tube of industrial-strength adhesive that just happened to be in the room? Jack groaned from the other bed. Mate, listen. I am not talking to you, Jack, I said, not even turning my head. I am talking to my wife, who apparently sleepwalks with a tube of Japanese lubricant in her pocket. Kylie started to cry. It was an emergency, Liam. We were scared. The doctors said we could have had permanent tissue damage. That sounds terrible, I said. I stood up and poured a glass of water from the jug on the table. I took a sip myself, savoring the cool liquid. You must be thirsty after all that exercise. I did not offer her any water. The police were here earlier, Jack said, his voice quiet. They were asking questions about the disturbance. We told them it was a misunderstanding. That is good, I said, smiling at them both, because I have another visitor coming to see you shortly, and I do not think he believes it was just a misunderstanding. Who? Kylie asked, wiping her eyes. Who is coming? Just a friend, I said, checking my wristwatch. He should be here any minute. As if on cue, there was a knock at the door, but it was not a doctor. It was not a nurse. It was a man in a sharp suit, holding a leather briefcase, and behind him stood two uniformed officers from the New South Wales police force. The color drained from Kylie's face so fast she looked like a ghost. The man in the suit stepped forward. He placed his briefcase on the end of Kylie's bed with a heavy thud. Kylie, Jack, I said, my voice calm and steady. I would like to introduce you to Mr. Sterling. He is my solicitor, and behind him is Detective Senior Constable Kelly from the local area command. Kylie looked from me to the solicitor, and then to the police officers. Her trembling hands gripped the hospital sheets. Liam, what is this? Why is there a solicitor here? Because, my darling, I said, standing up and buttoning my suit jacket. I did not just find the tube of lubricant. I found the financial records. The room went silent. The only sound was the beeping of the heart rate monitor next to Jack's bed, which was rapidly increasing in tempo. You see, I continued, pacing slowly between their beds like a university professor giving a lecture. When I found your secret chat application inside the groceries folder, I became curious. I decided to look at our family trust account. It appears that over the last 18 months, you have transferred nearly $50,000 to a company called JO Consulting. I looked at Jack. That would be you, I assume? Jack O'Reilly Consulting? Jack looked away, staring at the ceiling tiles as if they were the most interesting thing in the world. That is not a crime, Kylie snapped, trying to regain some composure. I was investing in his business. He is a fitness entrepreneur. Actually, Mr. Sterling interrupted, opening his briefcase and pulling out a thick stack of documents. According to the Australian Taxation Office, JO Consulting is not a registered business entity, and since the money was transferred from a joint account without the consent of the primary earner, and then used to purchase illicit substances and luxury hotel stays, it constitutes fraud and embezzlement. And then there is the matter of the tea, Detective Kelly added, stepping forward. His arms were crossed and his expression was severe. We found traces of prescription sedatives in your husband's blood work from a sample he provided to his general practitioner yesterday afternoon. Administering a stupefying drug to another person with the intent to commit an indictable offense is a serious crime in New South Wales, Mrs. Simmons. It carries a maximum penalty of 25 years in prison. Kylie's mouth fell open. The sleepwalking story had disintegrated. The accident excuse was gone. She looked at me, her eyes filling with genuine terror for the first time. "Liam, please," she whispered. "We can talk about this. We have a son. Think about Noah." I stopped pacing. I walked over to her bedside and looked down at her. I did not feel anger anymore. I did not feel hate. I just felt a profound sense of clarity. "I have thought about Noah," I said softly. "That is why I have already been to the family court." Mr. Sterling handed a document to Kylie. It was heavy, bound in legal tape. "This is an application for the dissolution of our marriage," I explained, "and an emergency order granting me full sole custody of Noah, effective immediately. Given that you are currently under investigation for fraud and poisoning your spouse, the judge was very sympathetic to my application." "You cannot do this," Jack shouted, trying to sit up but wincing in pain. "You set us up. You put glue in the tube." I turned to Jack and smiled, a cold, polite smile. "I have no idea what you are talking about, mate. I simply repaired a loose tile on my balcony. If my wife chose to steal my industrial adhesive and use it for recreational purposes, that sounds like a personal safety issue, not a legal one." I turned back to Kylie. "The house in Bondi is in my name. The car is in my name. The savings account has been frozen by the bank pending the police investigation." I leaned in close so only she could hear me. "I offered you a life of comfort and loyalty, Kylie. You chose a life of deceit with the man upstairs. Now you can keep him. I am sure he will be very supportive once he realizes you have no money left to fund his lifestyle." I checked my reflection in the mirror on the wall. My tie was straight. My suit was immaculate. "Mr. Sterling will handle the rest of the paperwork," I said, turning toward the door. "Detective Kelly, they are all yours." "Liam!" Kylie screamed as I walked out. "Liam, do not walk away. Liam!" I did not look back. A gentleman knows when to leave a party. And this party was definitely over. 6 months later. The sun was just beginning to rise over the horizon, painting the sky above Bondi Beach in brilliant shades of pink and orange. The air was crisp and salty, carrying the distinct scent of the ocean that signifies a new day in Sydney. I finished my morning run along the coastline and slowed to a walk as I approached the promenade. My breathing was steady, and my mind was clear. The heavy fog that had clouded my life for so long had completely lifted. I walked toward my favorite coffee establishment where my son, Noah, was waiting for me with my mother. Noah was sitting on a bench, swinging his legs and happily demolishing a chocolate croissant. "Daddy!" he shouted, waving a sticky hand in the air. "Look at the surfers." "I see them, mate," I said, smiling as I sat down next to him. "They are carving it up today." I took a sip of my flat white coffee. It was hot, strong, and tasted like freedom. My mobile telephone vibrated in the pocket of my activewear. I pulled it out and saw a notification on the screen. It was a text message from Detective Senior Constable Kelly. Kelly. The sentencing hearing just finished. Guilty pleas entered for both defendants regarding the fraud and administration of illicit substances. 18 months of incarceration for her, 2 years for him. The case is officially closed. Buy you a beer on Friday? I stared at the screen for a moment. I thought about the anger I used to feel. I thought about the betrayal, the lies, and the silver tube of Japanese lubricant, I thought about Kylie and Jack now sitting in a cell, blaming each other for their downfall. The news report said they had turned on one another during the trial, fighting over every dollar and every scrap of blame. But as I sat there in the morning sunlight, I realized something profound. I did not care. I did not feel a surge of victory. I did not feel the need to celebrate their misery. They were simply the past, like a bad storm that had finally blown out to sea. I did not reply to the message immediately. Instead, I pressed the delete button. I looked at Noah, who was now trying to wipe chocolate off his face with a napkin. "Righto, Noah," I said, standing up and stretching my arms toward the sky. "Who is ready for a swim in the ocean?" Me, he screamed, jumping off the bench. "Race you to the water," I laughed. We ran down the golden sand, leaving the concrete promenade and the shadows of the high-rise apartments behind us. The water was cold, shocking, and utterly refreshing. As I dived into the breaking wave, I understood the truth. The best revenge was not the glue. It was not the police investigation. It was not the prison sentences. The best revenge was standing here, in the sunshine, living a life so full of joy and peace that the people who hurt you simply cease to exist in your world. Karma had done its job. Now it was time for me to do mine, to live